Wow, there is so much to this. And it's not just what you think. We're not just looking at a conversation about a cryptocurrency and its value. We're having a conversation again about fascist thought forms. I haven't seen this type of, well, you're either with this or you're with, since Bush's speech with the terrorists, since people going, you're either with Trump or you're with Clinton. Now you're either with Bitcoin or you're with the dollar. You're pro system. And then there's Janet Yellen herself from the Federal Reserve recognizing Bitcoin. Sure, it's speculative, it's volatile, but her words, she has recognized it. CNBC did a special with some kid who's a millionaire basically because he invested in Bitcoin early. That's not the mainstream media attacking Bitcoin. We are living in la la land, ladies and gentlemen. You can be in Bitcoin and I can be into just focusing on living off the grid and doing videos and not getting on the next big thing. Is that all right? Can I continue to be Alex Ansary in 2018? No, I can't in the eyes of some. I recognize this energy, or you, oh, you're not on, oh, see, people look for issues to fight with others about. That's the truth. I'll say that again. People look for issues to fight with others about. That's the issue. There'll be some people that I never hear from, and they'll pop up going, Alex, oh my God, oh no. You're not on board our fad, our digital fad. You must be with the Soros dollar. And it's like, how can we hit a new low in idiocracy with the mindless insults that aren't even well thought out or strategic, but just like a monkey throwing shit at the wall, seeing what sticks. And I've said this many, many times. If I have known honorable people into Bitcoin personally, someone just, burping out Ron Paul doesn't really cut it. If we want to get literal, Ron Paul's been associated with Alex Jones for many, many years. If you want to get literal, it's true. He's not a guest as of lately, but still. There are other questions as well regarding Ron Paul. But comparing him to the rest, of course, he's far better. And there are a lot of things that brought me and Ron Paulers together back in the day. Unfortunately, a lot of those people have allowed themselves to be co opted by a politics of today. Now, it's not a coincidence that the people that I've known or known of that are really into Bitcoin, they seem to have some serious personality deficiencies. I've also seen what Bitcoin has done to former friends, specifically. I also see how it's a new way, right, or reason for some people in their mind to troll me. If you want to tell me how great Bitcoin is, you donate a Bitcoin. If you literally bought 1,000 Bitcoins and you know how much that could help me and you care about alternative media, then you would do that. Don't laugh and don't use that as a way to troll. Seriously, Bitcoin is so great, donate a Bitcoin. Like someone would donate $1. Oh, it's worth so much, then have a great time. I would say your parents never really taught you manners, nor the world. That it's not good to be running around flaunting your wealth. I was without a home in recent years. I live in a very humble situation outside of the regulations of a lot of major counties, cities, and territories. It doesn't mean that there aren't regulations. It means I moved to a rural part of America. America, yeah, where things move slower. So I live unconventionally. I live off a very small amount of money. It's almost embarrassing, but I get by. I'm making like 60% less on YouTube because the ad problems. That's less dollars, far less dollars. Donations this holiday season, incredibly light. Try to do something good for myself and go on vacation, and ended up visiting some crazy people. And so there was a major loss in money that was saved up for a trip. And I was putting aside just a little bit, and some donations and putting stuff aside. And then, boom, I went with it. And so, I'm very also hesitant to even take certain risks at this time because I can't afford to. Some of us can't afford to take risks in losing it all. That doesn't make us your political enemy. It makes us poor folk on the other side of the railroad tracks that aren't willing to invest in Bitcoin. People ought to be creating community with this technology, not fighting over Bitcoin. Look at what the internet has done to some of these human beings, some of these males that don't pass for men. Not if they start up pathetic arguments and debates about Bitcoin. Here's my question to them. It's almost as if they're trying to bring me to Jesus. It makes more sense for the born again Christian in his ego to want to bring me over to the Jesus of his mind. Because, of course, I don't feel like a lot of these so called Christians are looking for the real teachings of Jesus. That's another story. But I would understand that more rather than the Bitcoin religious member bringing me to the church of Bitcoin. What motivates that person? Why are they so angry? Let's talk about this interview with Peter Schiff. Why are these people that are coming out, right, that are on the side of Bitcoin, then just enjoy it? Why do you need me on board? Where's the motivation there? You don't. You're whipped up in the emotion. It's the latest thing to fight about. It's not only the latest major worldwide financial trend. It's going to bring the Venezuelans out of poverty. Right. Assuming that they're going to get to the next step in the infrastructure and create a way for them to cash out without enormous, lengthy transaction fees and waits. And that's what we're hearing about. We're hearing about the transaction fees and the waiting time for Bitcoin. And I'm to believe, right, and not suspect a repeating talking point that I hear 10 times. I hear about the Venezuelans and Bitcoin 10 different times. You know what that means? That's some sort of a major talking point that someone's shotgunning out about it being some sort of a solution to world poverty. Now, when I start seeing propaganda memes like that, when I start saying things like, well, that's fiat currency, but this isn't, when Bitcoin is argued to be fiat as well. When I see people hold up people like Peter Schiff over the years to throwing Peter Schiff under the bus. I just listened to an interview with Peter Schiff just recently. And, I think I'm going to need to play this for you. You need to hear how, the normal questions that Peter Schiff is raising, how defensive the others are getting, especially what appears to be one of the representatives for the Bitcoin company. I've seen some of the messages directed my way, and in the past, I've also seen how over the years my independent nature kind of sets me aside from the herd on so many different issues, on so many different levels. And I was born literally with a different perspective. I take a look at what's going on geopolitically in this upcoming manufactured World War III scenario between the West and China, and I stand alone with the specifics. It's a manufactured war from the top down. That's not how people today are presenting it. They keep arguing up this West Side, East Side, battle for the New World Order. It's got all the wrappings of the WWE. But it doesn't have the truth. It doesn't have the steak and potatoes. It doesn't have the documents of how our government, the Western powers, built up the modern Chinese military, and thus other surrounding nations and their military technologies. That would include North Korea. Now, I'm glad that I brought that up because I want to get into this before we get into the video. It seems very likely that they can use, in fact, it's already in the news about North Korea hacking cryptocurrency. So my theory, which I should have proposed earlier, but it seems to be very concurrent with this and right on cue, North Korea hacking cryptocurrency. They can whip people into a deeper frenzy that are already on the path of Donald Trump needing to do something about North Korea without realizing North Korea is a manufactured threat. But we're not really an adult society that's able to have adult conversations about its so-called elected leaders. No, no, no. Let's not talk about Trump being a selection. Let's just talk about Obama and Bush being selections. Yeah, yeah. I'm still hearing people in denial on YouTube about whether Trump's with the Illuminati or with the establishment. They still have nothing figured out. They're still waiting for their king, the return of the king. Well, they're going to be waiting a long friggin' time. So they can use North Korea as a false flag to take out Bitcoin, to whip people up into a frenzy. It's likely already begun. They were already whipped into a frenzy. Enter Bitcoin's rise, right? But what if the whole thing is set up? But in more ways than one. And enter another setup, North Korea, that they don't believe is a setup. At least they're not acting like it. Because if Christopher Green was aware, for example, he would be exposing how Trump is being used as a wedge to start this war, not from a deep state versus Donald Trump, but from the position of what it actually is. Our leaders are selected, they're not elected. People like Christopher Green, people like Alex Jones, people like others that are out there in the alternative media, they're aware of this. Why do they hold back from normal human criticism? So let me ask you a question. When you take a guy like Christopher Green, I've said this many times, and you see that 95% of their content could be argued to be misleading, especially when you compare the title to the actual content of the video. And you look at other people that are following a particular model. That's why what has become of the alternative media is disgraceful, whatever your politics are, even if you're for Donald Trump. I see there are some people that are for Donald Trump. They can see through the shenanigans of some of these individuals in the alternative media, that they're con men. They can use politics, they can use religion, they will use the Bible. They will say and do anything for a dollar. Shall I say a Bitcoin? Or shall I say a Litecoin? They will act like they're one thing and in reality be something completely different, all for the love of money, all for the love of cryptocurrency, all for the love of this kind of energy. Then how are they anything but a vampire? And when they can lie to your face in a world where consistent, confident lying is something that I believe to some women is straight up sexual. Oh my God, he's so hot. Oh my God, he lied so hard that time. Oh my God. Oh, as they throw up their bras and their panties. I literally, some people get wet off King Liar, King Snake, King Cobra. And that's what you got a lot of these people in this false hierarchy competing to be top dog, trying to get Trump's attention, Trump's love, thinking of being a millionaire by 2020, not thinking. So here they are predicting total damnation of the country while predicting themselves multimillionaires. How are they not agents of something? No, we can debate about what that is. Why are they so confident? You see what has me concerned? When a guy like Christopher Green, where 95% of his content is mostly fake or false leading, When he's claiming himself, he's putting it all down on the line. Oh, he's created his own school, Bitcoin school, to help people get on board the choo-choo train as well. No, I'm not supposed to be concerned. I'm supposed to believe him. Yeah, I'm supposed to now just stop questioning things that I questioned before and believe all of his other bullshit. World War III's begun 6 months ago. Alert, alert, alert. Breakdown in the equipment room. 9 months ago, alert, alert, alert. Can't stand up. Chris Green's got war fever, PTSD. Oh my God. Mama, don't say it. It's a character. Mama, don't say it. It's a character. What kind of a human being plays that type of a character? I better stop before I get upset. Characters. I mean, hell, I thought that was what the political guild actor array were. I've called Obama part of the political guild actor association. George Bush, part of the political guild actor association. People are like, what, Alex? What? I don't understand. You're like, they're actors. they're placed in power. And George W. Bush, you go, yup, 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 I'm an idiot, folks, when he's not really an idiot. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Barack Obama, political guild actor. What was I saying before some of these people even found YouTube? When I was doing my show and Obama came on the scene. And I said he's a Christian to the Christians. He's a Muslim to the Muslims. He's a Jew to the Jew. And he'll do it with a smile. Who was angry at me then? Was it Trump supporters? It was Obama supporters. Why? Because I was bucking the trend. I was dissing their Messiah. They hated me for that. I called out their tribalism that was based around their political Messiah, Barack Obama. Later on in life, in the modern day, I would call out the modern tribalism, and people would misidentify me as a member of the left or Antifa without even being curious of how long on YouTube I've been a contrarian. Okay, someone that literally goes their own way, an independent voice, an independent mind, only to find myself blacklisted from RT and other news organizations. Christopher Green deleting my interview with him. Was it that commentary on the dead civilians of war in Afghanistan at the hands of the Russians? Was it that nerve? And I just wonder, in that microcosmic AMTV world, with the peripheral hypothetical red phone, get that guy off your show. Oh yeah, I thought more than once that there was an intervention from forces working behind the scenes that we do not understand or know. Getting me back to my main point, being that I think some of these individuals are not what we think. And they have just grown in success to viral status while claiming to be victimized and censored, right, by the same platform and medium that is helping them grow to viral success. They may have a bump in the road where the AdSense isn't functioning. We're all hurting, buddy. We're all hurting. But your assertion that it's only happening to white men with blue eyes that voted Donald Trump, that is disgraceful. Because the YouTube apocalypse is happening to us all. So that is disgraceful. That is dishonest. That is a lie. When you look at individuals like that and their ilk, and you need to learn to understand the networks, the people they're associated with, and the people they will always go to bat with, and also learning the language. I'm not saying about looking too deep into certain things. I think there are certain people out there that latch on and create certain conspiracies and say so-and-so is a dead Hollywood actor. And I would say that some of those YouTube channels are probably quite suspect, especially when you're dealing with 4, 5, 6, and they've all just randomly come to the same conclusion that somebody's a dead actor. that someone's really related to so and so or whatnot when they're obviously not. So you're going to see fake videos out there exposing certain individuals. Shout out to the Alex Jones's, Bill Hicks mental insanity movement. I don't know why people have such a problem with Bill Hicks. Why they feel such a need to insult this man who is no longer with us. But you are definitely dealing with a society that has no respect. So there are people out there that have muddied the waters with fake conspiracy videos about people that really should have their backgrounds looked into. Now, why do certain people feel so confident in Bitcoin? Do they have insider knowledge? If some of these individuals are agents, then I would say international intelligence agencies, and I just see really an infantile American consumer population that thinks that they're woke, that can't even conceive of CIA and Russia working together to create civil war scenarios, to create race war scenarios. They can't even conceive of, if you will, the aliens running the governments. They're busy reading documents about the Pentagon potentially chasing UFOs. All of that is manufactured garbly goo to take us off the focus. Doesn't mean that articles like that aren't relevant, but I believe those are manufactured reports from the state to say, oh, yeah, we've been spending millions chasing this perceived threat. That's just preparing us for Project Bluebeam or the false flag alien invasion. When in fact, the demons, the fallen angels, they're already here. They're already behind the throne. The powers behind the throne, behind the presidents, behind the wars, sucking off that energy in which these blood sacrifices in Iraq and Afghanistan, have you forgotten? These blood sacrifices, these inhumane atrocities done in our name continue while people attempt to shoot up and heat up Bitcoin in the spoon. I'm being metaphoric. But it's got that same energy to it. And would these same people really refuse the chip if they could only take the Bitcoin through one particular mean or cash out one day? Oh yeah, Bitcoin millionaires, Bitcoin billionaires. All right, bend over and take it. Oh, you thought the implant was going to be in your arm. Guess again. That's right. That butt's going to get scanned every time you go in that. The future um, is straight out of a sci-fi film. Some weird back of the library, back of the bookstore sci-fi novel that never should have been written. Excuse the coughing. Early morning here, 3:26. Uh, I get up early. I go to sleep early. Okay, when the sun is done at 4:30 and I'm in a mountain range, I go to sleep. I don't live in the grid. I'm still influenced by what's happening within the grid in society. Part of me living off the grid is to step back from that madness. And so I guess to me, the real value, I don't think you could really call it currency, but what I really value is my freedom. What I really value is my space. And I like to have space from other people. And I know that, this whipped up frenzy into certain things like this, it's not that I need recognition or want recognition, but at times it feels lonely being on this freedom path. And to see so many look at things like digital currency as the only path to freedom or personal wealth or personal success is more than a little bit disappointing. I don't know how deep I want to go down that rabbit hole. It's like to see people get involved in any kind of fad, political or currency, is sad. And it turns off people like me. And it's like there are certain members of my audience that get it. There are others that don't get it. They just happen to be subscribers because they may be in this genre of consuming alternative media content on YouTube. But I'm someone that wears their heart on their sleeve. And so this is really about my journey, my individual journey towards freedom and the different paths that I'm taking, and also the advice that I have for not only the audience, which includes some women, but very few, and mostly men. And part of the discussion is going independent from toxic relationships. And that doesn't mean that we're saying no to all relationships, but if all that's left is sadness and misery for the most part, and toxic relationships, unhealthy relationships, it's better to go to our own way. And it's sick for those in this world society to guilt trip any man going his own way or living an independent lifestyle. That would mean not working his whole life and day in and day out to live in a certain type of a home, to fill it with a family. In fact, it could be argued, right? And I'm not for any government attempts to control the population, but there isn't a whole lot of appreciation for those single men that are just choosing to not procreate. I'm one of those. Okay, I'm one of those, and those are my own reasons. And I could write a book, and perhaps one day I will, about my life. But I'd say, well, I'm just following my gut with this, just like I followed my gut with other things. So if you're going to listen to an Alex Ansary video and you're going to be a subscriber of this, you're subscribing to one man giving you his honest thoughts. When I look at these other individuals that are far more successful, I see their success coming from their ability to tap dance to their audience and tell their audience what they want to hear. And potentially for some of these individuals, propaganda is for figures you don't even understand. They've created this whole, attitude now to where if someone questions Russia, Putin, then they're with the Western mainstream media. They just don't get it. And they certainly just don't get how the Western mainstream media, to use an Alex Jones term, for those that have been around for more than a decade, that aren't Johnny come latelys that'll actually get it. He used to use the term turd in a punch bowl analogy, where they would literally, deliberately pollute the waters of certain topics that we should be looking at, but they would literally create straw man arguments, turd in the punch bowl, like someone like crapping in punch, so no one would literally pick up a cup and pour themselves a glass and drink out of it. No one's going to drink at a punch with shit in it. So the mainstream media has been doing is doing the turd in the punch bowl analogy with regards to Russia. Because for years I've been seeing Russia as a part of this agenda, along with their own government, along with China, and them playing out this false war to then bring us this new world order currency. Now I'm looking at Bitcoin and its pathway to something, if not a quick collapse or a massive deflation after the bubble pops, or massive regulation uh, by regulatory agencies, destroying its value later on. I remember hearing about the FBI having a large amount of Bitcoins early on in its inception. And I think that's a detail that people aren't discussing. I think the founder of Bitcoin.com or something related to Bitcoin, because there's a lot of Bitcoin industries surrounding Bitcoin, um, dependent, if you will. See, there's a lot of other companies that have risen with Bitcoin's rise. And so they're predicting they're going to have like Litecoin, others, Litecoin created by Google's Charlie Lee. So should we trust it more that it's been designed by Google? Because we all know how legitimate Google is. And see, I'm bringing up different points to say that there's just hypocrisy going on. And that's why I need to mention certain people out there that are very influential with regards to this, because people need to see through their hypocrisy. If they're saying that Google is the beast one day, 666, yada, 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 and then you have an ex member of Google creating a cryptocurrency called Litecoin, being referred to as the silver of Bitcoin. And there are others that say, okay, when you start seeing these, you know, things that actually aren't based on anything being referred to as gold and silver when they're not backed by anything, that's a red flag. And so, again, yes, there's no limit to the amount of currencies, cryptocurrencies, that can be created out of thin air. So I'm just going to finish my points and then try to bring up this video. I'm an independent. I know what it was like for the Obama people to get on me, and then the Trump people, and now the Bitcoin people, but none of these people will acknowledge that the years change. No one comes back years later and goes, Alex, you were right. They just maintain their attitude beef with me, but none of them are ever really friends. My attitude about Bitcoin, Litecoin, all the rest would be different if in the history of, say, my video series, and people can have an attitude they want, it's normal for people to receive cryptocurrency as a donation. But I'm not going to give up my bank account info to Coinbase. I'm following my gut instinct. I don't trust what's going on here. And I think it's a joke for people to place all this trust with their bank account information being available to certain folks. I think that's a joke. I think that we're being destroyed from within. I think the first major step were them to divide people for politics and have a what they would call a civil war in the street, but really wouldn't be a civil war. These Americans, these people, these commentators don't know what a civil war is, apparently. More like gangs, street fighting in the streets with bats, bricks, helmets, other weapons, things of that nature. Not even very good weapons. Another way is to create a false hope and a new currency, get rich quick, and a vacuum, literally, and gone. And that is what I would call a 1-2 punch. Boom! Divide them over politics and then create this big wave of the next great big thing. So you got people like Christopher Green of AMTVmedia.com saying this is like 2009 in reverse, with that heightened pitch in his voice. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Who's paying you to say that? Somehow, some way, someone's gotta be. There's no way a man in his right mind, right, would just announce the world that we're going to be fed now. That's so like, I don't know if I want to say socialist or communist. It's certainly entitlement. We're going to get fed now. In 2008 verbs. Yeehaw, 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 yeehaw. Just the logic of we're going to get ours. What, isn't this like, sounds like ghetto talk to me. What, you want some reparations for being a slave too? You're going to get y'all. In 2008 reverse. It's 2009 reverse. Bitcoin lottery. Yeah, buddy. And see, and then it takes me back. That's my point. I'm wondering if someone in his early days said, hey, here's 1,000 Bitcoin. Here's 10,000 Bitcoin. Kind of like doing with the mafia. We're going to do you a favor. Well, hey, don't sell that. You're going to see what's going to come about from that. Something's there with some of these individuals. And there's ways that a man, I would even say, and this is going to come out later, there's ways that a woman, her body, her flesh, her blood, could straight up be bought or trafficked with the Bitcoin. So, prostitutes, right? And more. There's prostitutes and there's just straight up sex slaves, human trafficking slaves. Could be bought with the Bitcoin. But propagandists, that's right. Propagandists could also be paid with Bitcoin. People there to push a particular talking point. What's this? $100 Bitcoin? $1,000? Well, thank you very much. No, don't spend that. Hang on to that for a little bit. See what happens. You'll understand. You'll understand. Then by the moment that Bitcoin went up to that amount, and that person or persons that were holding XYZ amount of Bitcoin. So you're going, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, 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 I'm rich, bitch. I'm rich, bitch. And then Christopher Green of AMTV, he was sitting down, he was reading his Bible one day, and all of a sudden he looked over here, and all of a sudden he just started shitting his pants. And normal videos where he might talk about himself sitting on the toilet in a appropriate manner. I don't know, maybe that increases the value of the video, but he literally had a shitting of the pants moment. Stood up, his phone's ringing. Have you heard the news? He's pissing all over. Oh, I just got the news. I can buy a Ferrari. I can be on the. All of a sudden, shh. One day then he posts on Twitter, I only kneel for Jesus. That was like a joke. That was like a joke. He was like fucking with his audience at that moment. Like, I only kneel. Yeah, dude, you only kneel for Bitcoin. You only kneel for the idea of being recognized by Donald Trump and the political establishment. You only kneel the idea of your king coming home. And see, that was a good guy in Lord of the Rings when I talk about the return of the king. So that wasn't a bad thing, but that was also propaganda too. The movie's great, but I'm talking about people will latch on to that yearning for the king to come home and do what needs to be done. And who knows what type of thoughts are going on in some of these supporters that they're not admitting. But if you're savvy with the internet, if you know how to use Twitter, if you know how to use social media, if you know how to watch a YouTube video, and also find out what the real facts are so you can see what people are saying, but also compare it to the reality, then you know what people are brainwashed with. And it's not pretty. Someone can tap dance all they want and throw out verbiage to fake concerns for the victims of war, but only as much is necessary. Only as much as is necessary. And now, with the perceived return of the king, it is no longer appropriate for some of these individuals to show compassion for those that are less fortunate than them. They are not real Christians. They are not real patriots. They are not trying to help you get rich quick. If 90 to 95% of their content, there's other people like Christopher Green out there that are tapping into that market, that likes to be lied to, that likes to be told how it is. Hit me, baby, one more time just because it looks like a coin. And just because there's gold in the coloring doesn't mean that it's actually gold. Let me find this video from Peter Schiff. Now, why is this significant? Well, I just mentioned Christopher Green. He had Peter Schiff on his show. That's right. They're all doing the circle jerk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump! Donald Trump! Trump, Trump, Trump! Donald Trump! You're either with Trump or you're with Clinton. Donald Trump! Don't ask us questions about Trump and Clinton. I'm not on record for giving Clinton any money. Trump is. Let's not talk about that. Donald Trump! All right? So these guys are homies from the old school Donald Trump. In one corner, you have CG literally hemorrhaging Bitcoin juice. Like, I'm rich, bitch. Then they got over on this corner, Peter Schiff is saying that Bitcoin is going to zero. Again, I'm painting the picture for you in your mind's eye. 1 year ago, in one corner, AMTV, in the other corner, Peter Schiff, Donald Trump, and they're just going to keep, yeah, baby, America, just big old bite of that chocolate pie, cherry pie. American flag, stand behind it, scream, shout, spit all over yourself, foam at the mouth, Obama, Obama. Enter Donald Trump, hump that leg, baby. Better hump that. Oh, we'll respect you. We'll respect you till the final day. You just keep humping that leg until you just explode all over it. See, but we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. So, now at least I guess you could say he's diverted to Bitcoin. And he's gotten off the dry humping of Trump's leg, and that some stuff should be like literally limited to the bedroom. But thank God for video. So these folks, when they're older, if they are able to watch video then, and they are alive, they should have to see what they promoted in 2017. That's what I wish upon them, not harm. I wish for them to be able to see the harm of their actions. And they can pray to God for the first time in their life in a sincere way on their deathbed. Because whatever they're doing right now is a joke. So here's Peter Schiff arguing with Bitcoin propagandists. It's a longer clip.
Bitcoin the equivalent of buying a lottery ticket? Let's bring in our panel to find out. Here with us in the studio is Sarowan Hatipolu. He's the CEO of Business Environment Risk Intelligence and CGTN's Global Economics Analyst. From Western Connecticut, we're joined by Peter Schiff. He's the CEO and Chief Global Strategist of Euro-Pacific Capital. Also with us is Peter Van Valkenburg. He's the Director of Research at Coin Center, a non-profit cryptocurrency research and advocacy organization here in Washington, D.C. And from Boston, Robert Siciliano is a security analyst with Hotspot Shield and an expert on cyber crime. Thanks to all of you for being with us. Sarowan, I'm going to start with you and the inevitable question. What exactly is Bitcoin?
Very good one. It's not physical money. Bitcoin, the idea of it was actually developed in 2008 as a digital payment. So the coin concept came later on. And in any digital cash or digital payment system, you need a network of payments to kind of keep track of what is being spent, the accounts balances, and so on and so forth. This is a decentralized system. So to prevent the system to be abused, a cryptocurrency concept was introduced. And that cryptocurrency is pretty much a limited data entry in a ledger that keeps these accounts. So a lot of people are saying, well, we don't know where it is. We don't know how we can access it, so we don't trust it. But Anand, look what happened in 2007 with the crisis that built up, right? We had all our monies in banks, in investments, in mortgage-backed securities, and it was all gone all of a sudden. So people just don't understand, but this was a reaction to that 2008 crisis, how everything has developed. And at the end, people said, you know what, I think we're going to be trusting in math, in algorithms, rather than people themselves. This is pretty much what New York Stock Exchange had in 2 centuries ago. A couple of brokers came there and said, look, we don't trust each other. We need to set up some rules. And they did. And that same thing is happening with the Bitcoin market.
Yeah, but what backs it? What gives it value?
Well, it gives value because, first of all, there's a soaring demand. Demand always gives value to any kind of asset, right? We're seeing this in Asia quite a bit. And the reason that we're seeing it recently, starting from March, April, I would say, is because Japan, the parliament in Japan, passed a legislation making that legal tender. At the end of September, Financial Services Committee provided 11 licenses for Bitcoin exchanges. So that's pretty big recognition. And Japan actually is ahead of the curve here. They're recognizing it. This is something that they have to deal with. At the same time, if you look at it from the investor's point of view, look, CME, CBOE, getting all kinds of recognition. NASDAQ is next. So there are also arbitrage opportunities because the futures are going to be settled in US dollars, not Bitcoin. Right. So the prices will be different. Investors are going to come in and take advantage of it.
Peter Schiff, as I understand it, there are only a certain number of Bitcoins that are in circulation right now. If I wanted to buy one, where would I go? What would I do?
Well, I wouldn't encourage you to do that, but there are plenty of online exchanges where you can go to buy Bitcoin. But yes, there is an artificial scarcity there because they can only mine, and I use the word mine in quotes because they use mining to try to create value that doesn't exist by using terminology associated with gold. But since you can only mine 21 million of them, that's the limit. But of course, there's no limit to how many competing digital currencies that have no value at all, just like Bitcoin, can be created. In fact, Bitcoin is already forked twice. They have Bitcoin Cash and they have Bitcoin Gold, and there's 21 million of those, and there's an unlimited number of forks that can come off of the Bitcoin network. So the only value in the cryptocurrency now is the fact that it's going up. and people are buying it because they believe they'll be able to sell it to somebody else who also thinks it's going to keep going up because he can buy it, he can sell to somebody else who has the same outlook. But as soon as the currency really starts to decline, it's going to implode, and eventually it will go down to its true value. And Jamie Dimon is right, and I don't often agree with Jamie Dimon, but in this case I do. I think the ultimate value is going to be zero. And I do think that the idea was born out of the frustration from 2008. You know, I was one of the people who predicted that crisis, who was short the subprime market, and I understood the problems with the fiat monetary system. And a lot of the people, the early adapters of Bitcoin, understood the problems with fiat money, with the dollar, with the euro, with the yen, with all the quantitative easing and 0% and negative interest rates. But the problem was these cryptocurrencies have more in common with fiat than people believe. These are fiat cryptocurrencies. What people really should be doing, if they're worried about the dollar or the euro or the yen, is they should be buying gold. They should be buying a real alternative.
Who's fiat,
that
Peter?
is real, honest money. Excuse me?
Who's fiat? Fiat means that somebody gives this thing value.
No, fiat, well, fiat just means let it be, by decree.
Right, it means this is money by fiat, and I'm the government, and I'm making this money. So who is doing that with Bitcoin?
No, but the backing of fiat currency comes just from faith, right? It's just confidence that it's always going to have value.
Right, faith in an issuer.
That's what Bitcoin has in common with fiat. It doesn't matter. There's no intrinsic value to the Bitcoin. All money, previous to governments creating paper money, all money was a commodity first, and then a medium of exchange second. Gold was a particularly good commodity to use as money.
That's a good sign.
No, but it's a commodity that has no value. It has no use.
I think commodities are valued what the market values them at. Gold is valued at what the gold traders value it at.
Okay, Peter Van Valkenburg.
Because there are things you can do with gold. And people have valued gold for thousands of years.
Peter, what percentage of the value of gold trading on commodities exchanges is actually from use as jewelry or in medicine or in science?
Okay, Peter Van Valkenburg, let's talk about Bitcoin for a moment here. As Peter Schiff pointed out, there are competing cryptocurrencies, 1,300 of them right now. Why has Bitcoin caught the public imagination?
Well, it is the original. So the white paper that explains the fundamental technology innovation that allows the system to work, that allows people over the internet, without legal agreement, without prior arrangement, without knowing each other or having a lawyer between them, come to an agreement over a ledger of transactions. A ledger of transactions dealing with only 21 million of these scarce units. And yes, they're artificially created in that it's just a ledger that describes them. But there's no person who keeps that ledger. There's no actual issuer. And what maintains
something that I'm just going to pause here, and then we're going to go right back to it. Notice the body language. It almost seems like the whole thing is being kind of staged, but the way he swivels his chair back and forth, it's kind of a certain type of presentation to the crossfire type of debate and arguing. And on one level, it's a little bit entertaining. That's why I'm sharing it with you. But the defensiveness, the passive-aggressive behavior, that's what turns me off in a new way or another way. That makes me even more suspicious is the attitude, the debate tactics, not dealing with the actual discussion, being overly defensive. I've said it before, religious zeal. And I've always made mention people only donate with dollars to me. If someone really wanted to direct cryptocurrency my way over the last, when did it start? 2009? So it's 2017, 8 years now. 8 years now. 8 years now. And also when people are anonymous, using anonymous names, and only want to deal with Bitcoin. I understand some people are used to being anonymous. In this day and age, you need to be careful. You need to be careful with that stuff. And my advice to anyone being a public figure, be very careful dealing with anonymous people or anonymous names on the internet. Try to deal with people that are really only stand-up guys or people that are honest about who they are, what their name is. Stay away from anonymous individuals. Let's go back to the video.
Maintains that value. What allows us to have faith in that record of scarcity and peer-to-peer value transfers is purely software. and that was developed back in 2008 and 2009, so it was very much the original. It solved a fundamental problem in computer science called the double spending problem, wherein most digital things can be endlessly reproduced at no cost, so they don't have scarce value. But Bitcoin found a way to solve that by keeping this peer-to-peer ledger.
Right. Okay. One moment there, Robert. I want to get. Sorry, one moment there, Peter.
The value of the network means nothing.
Yeah,
The follow-on cryptocurrencies that Peter is referencing are things that Peter, it gets confusing, are things that people have made in imitation of the original of Bitcoin, or because they think they can improve upon the technology. It's a permissionless open environment. It's like the internet in the 1990s. And while a lot of people were deeply skeptical about the internet in the 1990s, there were all sorts of people building all sorts of different business models. Now, some of them ended up like Pets.com. They bought bad Super Bowl ads with sock puppets, and they went away. And the only reason they got funded was because of irrational exuberance at the time.
Yeah.
But some of the companies back then, in the late 90s, they are now the major companies in the top 5 best capitalized
Bitcoin is not
companies.
One moment, Peter. I want to get to
it's not the internet.
I want to get to Robert. Robert,
the internet of money.
It's nothing.
Robert, let me get your view on this. How safe is Bitcoin?
Well, I guess that's relative. So consider your online banking. You use a username and a password to access your bank account that is hosted by, say, a large American or international bank. If that username and password is compromised, then money can be liquidated out of your bank account. Now, here in the U.S. and most countries, that money is backed by insurance and
Additional advice for anyone involved in public speaking when it comes to donations. If you happen to have paranoid audience members that are too afraid to donate to you with $1, the very fact they feel it needs to be anonymous, almost if they're ashamed to donate to you, don't accept the money. I've turned down countless amounts of cryptocurrency monies by not having a wallet. What's the problem with putting it into dollars and then sending me the donation? What's the issue? No, seriously. What's the issue? There's something there. In some cases, there's nothing there. It's purely psychological, and they really can do a conversion if they wanted to. And right now, wouldn't it right now be the perfect time to donate to your favorite host on YouTube if you're literally wearing the Bitcoin bling? Isn't it Christmas coming up? Things are pretty quiet over at PayPal. Things are pretty quiet over at I don't have a cryptocurrency wallet, but why should I have to? See, that's what I'm getting at. I shouldn't have to. It should easily be able to be converted to USD. Okay. That there being some massive transaction time and or fee. I'm just in deep thought here. Deep thought. Currency wars coming soon to a Facebook near you.
and governments, and they will refund those fees mostly for private accounts, whereas if it's a business account, you may be liable. That said, with Bitcoin, if your username and password is compromised, generally you will not see that money. There's no insurance, there's no backing. If you host or hold that wallet on your own, then you're out of luck.
Saruhan, when you say you own a Bitcoin, what do you actually own?
Well, you do own value, right? I mean, this is a store of value right now, but it is also going to be a medium of exchange.
It's not a store of value. There's no value in store.
But it's been a good store of value over the last
insurance.
5-6 years.
May I say, where was the insurance that the government offered in 2008 when millions of people lost their homes, when millions of people lost their investments? Where was the regulator then? Where was the government? Right? This is a response from people. We want to be safer. And yes, absolutely there are risks. Look, it has moved away from its intrinsic value. This has become a bubble. It's not tulip mania, by the way. I am so upset Jamie said that. Yeah. But it is going to lose value. Mania? A tulip mania was in 1636. It lasted less than a year, first of all. So that just time-wise, it's an insult to Bitcoin to compare it to that. This has been going on for a decade. Yeah. Second thing is that there was ownership. There were people owned tulips. Right here, there's no bulb.
Right.
In cryptocurrency, there's absolutely no bulb.
So the people, well, people in very high places are
there
very
was more
critical of
value in the
Bitcoin.
tulips.
I want you to take a listen to what Janet Yellen, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, had to say. Let's watch this.
Bitcoin at this time plays a very small role in the payment system. It is not a stable source of store of value, and it doesn't constitute legal tender. It is a highly speculative asset.
So let me ask you this first. Is she right? Is it speculation?
It is speculation, but she's not right. She's talking about something what the Federal Reserve and the regulators missed. It was the same thing. CDOs were not that big of a deal. Mortgage-backed securities were not that big of a deal. Where were the regulators? Why couldn't they catch that? Right? So I think that's a bad example. I like Janet Yellen, but I think she kind of talked too much there about Bitcoin in a way. But it's speculative. It's absolutely speculative.
I can't find fault with anything that Janet Yellen said there. I mean, it is not a stable store of value, and she said stable, not just store of value. It's very volatile, but it can be a store of value. Now the question is whether it's stable. And as to whether it's a large-scale mechanism for payments or whether it has a meaningful impact on the U.S. payments system, no, it's still small. Right. $250 billion in total market capitalization, i.e. the amount of money that's been pumped into the system as a whole, is a drop in the bucket in the global economic sense. And that's because this is raw new technology, and it's very promising, but it's still in its infancy.
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, if you even try to use it for payments, because I remember initially when people talked about it, they said it was great for micro payments. You know, if you want to buy a cup of coffee, you can pay for it in Bitcoin. Well, it's impossible. You know, it costs, I don't know, $30, $40, $50 just to do a transaction. So you can't buy something for $1 or $2 or $5 or even $100 because you know the cost of doing it is such a high percentage. It's much cheaper just to use a MasterCard or a Visa. It's 2 or 3%. So you can't use it as a medium of exchange. And people that are living in a lot of the poorer countries where a lot of people think, oh, it's ideal for people in these poorer countries that have really irresponsible central banks, although they're all reckless and irresponsible, but some are more so than others. But the annual incomes are so low that there's no way these people can afford to use Bitcoin. I mean, people are just using it now as for pure speculation. I was watching on CNBC today, you know, they had some kid that dropped out of high school that's now a multimillionaire because he happened to buy some Bitcoins, and now they're treating him like he's some kind of financial genius. You know, but this is all popular delusions and the madness of crowds. Yeah, you could find all kinds of crazy reasons to rationalize why the price is going up. But it's going up for one reason only, and that's because people are buying it. Okay. And they have to make up reasons to justify the activity.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's going to crash.
Okay,
yeah, and that's how bubbles work.
Okay,
I've
Robert,
seen it before.
Okay, let me get to Robert. Robert, you work with cybercrime. Among the criticisms we've heard of Bitcoin is that it's a cryptocurrency that's loved by criminals. Why do criminals like this?
It is, easy to anonymously exchange in Bitcoin. There's no central regulation, so no one really is paying attention. There are, minimal ways to track who's exchanging. So it's a very effective way to launder currency.
I'm sorry, I have to challenge that statement.
Okay, one moment. I'll give you a chance in a moment. Go ahead, Robert.
So right here in the U.S., in response to the imminent challenge, a woman actually has been caught who had been taken out a number of loans here in the U.S. and fraudulently opened up a number of different credit cards and ultimately turned all of that cash into Bitcoin and had sent that overseas to ISIS.
Actually, she did not send the Bitcoin overseas. That's just flat untrue, and I would not want that repeated on television.
Okay. Go ahead, Robert.
The prosecutors have alleged, and if they're right, then I hope she is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for it, that she bought Bitcoin with fraudulent credit cards, and then, rather than sending Bitcoin overseas, that she converted it back into dollars and then tried to use multiple wires, international shell companies, and cash, as in cash in a briefcase, to move it to ISIS. In other words, as a system for moving value across borders, that was not useful for her in this particular case. She turned to the legacy system and the world of shell companies, which is Mossack Fonseca, the main way to launder money in order to move money.
All right, Robert, just one moment, Peter. One moment. Peter Schiff, just one moment. Robert, just respond to that, and then I have a question on the back of that as well. Just go ahead.
So, whether that's the case or not, it's still in litigation. In the end, it has been used by criminals worldwide to transfer funds. That goes on with everyday cash. And that does not make Bitcoin bad. It just seems to be a effective way for criminals to get paid for ransomware and other non-traceable cryptocurrencies.
Now, the non-traceable is the other thing I wanted to address. Because we've talked about the fundamental innovation as to how this thing works. It works because there's a ledger. And not only is that ledger traceable, it's with perfect fidelity, and there's only one version of it. There's not a bunch of records kept by 5 different international correspondent banks that don't record beneficial ownership for the shell companies that open accounts. There's one ledger, it's called the blockchain. And if you know that someone received a payment at an address on that blockchain, you see with perfect fidelity every transaction into and out of that address. And this is exactly the kind of technological tool that law enforcement has used to apprehend the people who have used these networks for bad purposes, like Ross Ulbricht, the guy who created the Silk Road. He was caught with his laptop in front of him. They opened it up. They found the public address that he was receiving payments from the Silk Road drug market at. That's unimpeachable evidence that he benefited from every single atomistic transaction for drugs or heroin that happened on that website. And that evidence was presented in a court of law, and he is now in jail.
And they burned Charlie Shrem after that.
Okay.
Which I don't think he was involved. But
if what happens, now you've got this anonymous cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. What happens when you cash that out into dollars? Doesn't that alert central banks or banks that there's real currency here?
Well, yeah, you can do that, and there is real currency, and people are, but they're not doing it yet, Anand. That's the issue. I think still Bitcoin is in the infancy. This is going to be a huge demand issue, and we're seeing it. Look, CME, CBOE accepted it already. That's recognition. NASDAQ is next. That's recognition.
And one quick point, recognition aside, when you use an exchange in order to convert Bitcoin into dollars, you're using a company like Coinbase or GDAX, their exchange product. They are licensed or registered money services businesses. They do know your customer, suspicious activity reporting. They have a risk-calibrated anti-money laundering program. So if you try and cash out of the system, get away from that immutable record, they're going to collect information about you there. This is not a good tool for criminals.
Let me say...
Go ahead.
Let me say a point here. These futures contracts, when I first heard about Bitcoin years ago and people were buying it, one of the things they were telling me they liked about it was that it didn't have any futures contracts. They said, we don't like gold because it can be manipulated. They have futures contracts, and so we want to buy Bitcoins because there are no futures contracts. Now I'm hearing, buy Bitcoin because there's futures contracts. It's everything about the original. What people liked about it is changing, especially with criminals, because initially criminals were attracted to it because they believed it was anonymous, and now I've heard situations where criminals were caught precisely because they used Bitcoin. It's almost like a digital fingerprint. And as I think the governments are going to crack down more and follow this, then I think eventually criminals are going to walk away from it. And that was its only real value as a money laundering.
Peter's claim is that we keep changing our story.
Or as a store of value, it's no good.
As to why it's valuable. And what I have to challenge in that question is, who do you mean we keep changing our story? There is no Bitcoin company. There is no Bitcoin marketing organization. There are people over the world who are using open source software to build a connected network of computers to achieve a result. It's rather like the early internet. There were people all over the world connecting their computers. They were getting their newspapers from them. They were getting their email from them. And people laughed at those people. They said, you're using a ridiculous system. You're using something that's never going to have value. You're changing your story every day. It's for porn. It's not for porn. It's for online banking. But eventually we figured it out, and now we all use the internet.
One moment. I'm going to go around the table. Sarah, on you first.
I just want to say,
Peter.
Okay, so I just want to pause it there. I want to make sure you're getting this. That type of argument tone, religious zeal, Bitcoin is traded on the internet. To compare it to the internet is a step. It's a talking point. When I hear people repeating the same talking points as if they don't have original thought, there you go. You also don't want to get too close to some of these individuals that are doing the groupthink thing. We're going to sing in a song, sing in tune. Yeah, they went after you at the $1 dollar. It's like something out of South Park. It's like children. There's no respect for good, independent men like myself that are just trying to go our own way and think for ourselves. The zombies want us back in. They want us in their herd. They want us in their hive. Otherwise, they will see us as their enemy. This is why the world is enslaved. It's that thinking of you're either with us or you're with the enemy that you have to pick a side. What do you mean I have to pick a side? I just can't be an independent guy who's gone his own way? I know what this is about. We all know what this is all about.
Bitcoin and believe they're going to
it's
get rich.
fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
But we're focused on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Why are we not focused on cryptocurrency? Look, Bitcoin was about, 80-some% of the cryptocurrency in 2017?
That's right.
Right now it's about 55. There's competition coming in. So it could be the Napster of everything.
That's completely possible, yeah.
Right? So we need to understand that. So it could just
they're
go
all
crash to
Napster.
zero, but the cryptocurrency market is here to stay.
fundamental
The
open
sooner you
blockchain.
accept it, the better it will be.
Okay, Robert,
If you get a cryptocurrency backed by gold, if you have instead of a fiat cryptocurrency, then it could work. It has
No,
to be,
that defeats the entire purpose. The purpose is not to rely on somebody's faith and credit.
Okay.
Not to rely on
purpose
somebody
is
to
to create a
have the
bubble.
gold in
Yes,
a
I
warehouse,
understand.
but rather to rely on an open network of computers to record verified information.
I just want to go to Robert. Robert, can governments declare this illegal?
I think it's out of their hands at this point.
Yeah.
I think at best
course they
could. Well, I suppose. And how?
So my background is
They just say
law.
it's
I'm a lawyer. I
contraband.
work in
They
Washington,
say they
D.C. at a
don't let-
nonprofit. If you want to talk about government policy, it's what we do day to day in the last 3 years that we've been operating. And what I can say is there's no appetite for that. People always think there's this monolithic government that's fighting this monolithic technology and that they're at odds. In reality, government is just people. And we go into congressional offices and we go into regulatory agencies and we find people who are curious, who want questions answered. We find people who are excited and actually would love to be able to buy some if ethics rules didn't perhaps prohibit them from doing so.
At the same time, this is
all they do is they crack down.
One moment, Peter. One moment.
They require more.
An international financial structure is threatened by it. Look what Jamie Dimon is saying. For him to say this is a fraud.
We don't actually see any lobbying against it. So
He's
we always
not
thought that when we
Maybe
file
because they still
comments
don't
in, say, a
believe-
CFTC regulatory proceeding, and this is our perspective, we think
Maybe
that
they
futures
still
are a
don't
good
believe
idea.
it doesn't have legs.
That's possible that they don't take it seriously, but we've never run up against somebody submitting comments or lobbying in favor of the banks to shut this thing down. That kind of brinksmanship, that
Bitcoin,
kind of battle is not happening. And
Putin,
by and
cocaine,
large, this is a
fueled
regulated
sex parties.
technology. As I said, the
More
exchanges
to
are
leverage.
regulated as money services businesses. The futures markets are now regulated as swap execution facilities, and it can be traded in derivatives contracts. In addition, you have
but when
consumer
people have
protection
to start-
regulation. Every state in this country has been coming to the proposition that maybe they regulate these things like money transmission. So you have to get a license to do it in California. You have to do a license to do it.
That's the point I was getting at.
When people,
Peter, one
when
moment.
people have to supply.
What about the regulation of currency moving across borders? Wouldn't governments want to be involved in that? Wouldn't governments want to know where that money is going?
Well, at a minimum, the exchanges themselves need to beef up their security, or many of them should. And if they are either self-regulated or regulated by governments, they have more incentive or they're pressured to do so.
And they are regulated, and so the exchanges in general, I think, are doing a very good job, especially the U.S.-based ones, at having good cybersecurity programs and risk-calibrated anti-money laundering programs.
Okay, Peter, go ahead. Peter Schiff.
Yeah, when you have to deal with all of the KYC, the anti-money laundering, know your customer, when you have to present your social security number, a passport, a utility bill, when the IRS is issuing 1099s every time somebody sells a Bitcoin, when you have all this complication, all this regulation that drives up the cost even further, you've destroyed the original basis for the appeal of the currency.
Which is it?
And then
It's
all you
used
have
by
left is
criminals or
nothing.
it's too regulated? I don't understand. It's not regulated or it is regulated? Everything is bad.
When they have
This is like me talking to people on the street. Like, people really act like this. Like, what? So you did? He was pretty clear in what he meant and what he was explaining. Like, his point is just being laughed at by someone literally laughing. I just know. You like that? No, he's explaining why he doesn't like Bitcoin. Jackass.
the regulation, when they have the regulation, it's going to make it more expensive to use it.
No, but they have the regulation now, and people are using it now.
No.
It's
No,
regulated.
right now they're using it as a speculative asset because they think it's going up.
Yeah, that's fine.
People
If it's
aren't using
digital
it for
gold, that's
anything.
fine. People
Well,
were buying
it's not
gold in the
digital.
90s. and
Okay,
that-
Speculative
Okay, one
asset.
moment.
I want to ask Peter Schiff then. Well, what is the bond bubble that we're in? Global bonds that are 11 trillion out of them yielding negative returns on investors.
Yeah,
this is
I'm
not a
not going to
bubble.
argue. Look, we have a lot of bubbles, but the bond. Look,
It's the
we have
nature of
central
economy.
banks around the
Peter,
world that have
Bitcoin
kept
is $300 billion. This
Let
is
me
11
finish.
trillion.
We have central banks creating money out of thin air all around the world. We have bubbles in bonds. We have bubbles in stocks. We have bubbles in real estate. I'm not arguing that, but we also have a bubble in cryptocurrencies. That's one of the bubbles that I think central banks have created. And the reason I think the central banks created the
Peter,
Bitcoin.
what I would say is you
because
should
it's a
be glad
reaction
that there's a
to their
new
monetary
asset that's
policy.
uncorrelated with existing economic systems and maybe can be a good hedge
It's
against
not
other
correlated
bubbles.
with anything.
Yes, that's great. That's an excellent thing.
It's a bubble.
Yeah, when things get too correlated, Peter, we get things like 2008.
I've just got a couple of minutes left. Sorry,
The
I'm going to ask you
Bitcoin
this.
bubble
Would
is
you,
gonna- is gonna
one moment,
pop
Peter,
before a lot of these other bubbles.
right, would you advise people to invest in Bitcoins?
I wouldn't. Right at this point, I wouldn't. I completely.
That completes our presentation. Yeah, I'm looking for a better way to buy and sell silver for profit over time. It seems like that's something that's done periodically as it goes up and down. As far as a long-term investment, they could be waiting a long time. Although I've suspected that we could see a big shift in silver with all this interest in Bitcoin, especially if it crashes. We could see a retreat back into precious metals. What you're looking at here depicts cryptocurrency, Litecoin and Bitcoin. But it's mimicking the traditional precious metals, which have been highly suppressed. They have their own, as Peter Schiff was saying, futures associated with the precious metals. That initially, some people are running to Bitcoin that previously might have been involved in the precious metal investing. Some continue to. But we look at silver right now, it's like at $16 and something. It's down. It's down big time. So, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about, is it going to go lower? Really? It could. Some of the articles I read suggested there would be a much less production in the coming years. So maybe it takes a few years for some of this stuff. Conspiracy aside, they're controlling the silver market aside. Yes, I think we know that. But is it always going to be controlled like this? If the dollar at some point really does go south in a big way, are precious metals still going to be stuck where they're at now? Well, there are people screaming about, this stock market rally being a lot like 1929 and it just being a matter of time before half of it crashes. Meanwhile, they're all high off Bitcoin. What about Bitcoin being its own 1929 style rally? Where people that previously had nothing were walking around going, I'm a millionaire, bitch. I'm rich, bitch. That's the 1929 thing right there. Right there. It's the Bitcoin millionaire bullshit. By the way, do you know that Bitcoin millionaire is like top trending like terminology? I think one guy, Christopher Green, Bitcoin millionaire writes himself a check. Fuck you. Bitcoin millionaire. That is a specific key word that's trendy. That's why he used it. That's the degree of the media whore that he and his ilk are. Bitcoin millionaire. Bitcoin millionaire. I got myself a ride on a jet to do the fucking hookers in Las Vegas. Blah, 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 blah. I knew you went to go to fucking Vegas, man. Whether you were at Trump Tower or whether you were staying at the top of that pyramid, I don't know. But I want to conclude with something upbeat. And just, okay, so they're all high off this Bitcoin placebo, God, can you imagine some of the cocaine-fueled parties that went on the last week across America, but across the world? But and the prostitutes. And I'm not jealous. I'm just observing just the whole debauchery of this fallen world. But a Bitcoin crash could lead to a scramble back into precious metals. It's all in relation to supply and demand. Some things there could be coordination and conspiracy. In some ways, there may not. So would there be coordination between Bitcoin and those that are manipulating the precious metals? If there's not, one major effect could affect the other. And boom, all of a sudden, silver is no longer 16 some odd cents at spot price. It's now $30, $37, $45, $100. You also got to keep in mind, I'm in the alternative media. I've been surrounded by people calling the economic collapse for years, and we haven't seen it, but we've been waking up to the fact that we're just going into greater debt. At least I hope some have. Some, however, don't seem to realize why we're not having our economic collapse yet. America's being sold down the river, and the current president and the one after him, just like the one previous to him, which is why those with political allegiances are a joke to me. They're all selling us down the river and giving these foreign governments the prize jewels, if you will, the military technology. China looking over the shoulder, right? At some sort of a Boeing plant in Washington. All these different stories that we've become so used to. Some of them that have been told to us firsthand, some of which we've been learning online. That it's not by accident that these foreign governments that are supposedly on the eastern side of the New World Order did not get to where they are today alone. You have people like Anthony Sutton that have talked about the Western powers, influence in the direction of Russia, influence in the direction of China. Then why do people act like this is a real clash of titans? There's a hidden hand controlling it all. Some of these people that are acting as Pied Pipers for the establishment ought to be ashamed of themselves, ought to be ashamed of themselves. I don't care how much Bitcoin wealth they have. I don't care how many subscribers they have. They're a human being. They're not taking that to heaven. All your hundreds of thousands of subscribers, all those people that'll believe the bullshit, a particular propagandist, that's only going to hurt them in the end. All the people that they deceive, all those people they turned against goodness, all those people they turned against having compassion for the victims of war, and continuing to talk about that during the Trump administration. All of that will plague their soul. It's like you have that villain from Mortal Kombat, your soul is mine. They're like, yeah, how much Bitcoin you got? But yeah, I'm Alex Ansary, sign off. Let me know what you think on the cheapest way to buy and sell silver. I think that it might be something as a hobby for some of us to get more involved in. I'd love to have $17 to be able to buy myself, just as a token, to buy myself some silver. If a number of people wanted to donate silver money to me, specific Alex, you can only spend this on silver, okay? You got a deal. All right, happy holidays. I'll see you in the next video.